Win big with new DRF All Access past performances. With one best-in-class product, you now get all 3 past performance formats. Go to DRF.com and use coupon code 1FREEPP for a free single card today.
Graded stakes action this weekend at Gulfstream Park. Race number 10 is the Grade 3 Princess Rooney 7 furlong filly and mare sprint. Let's jump in and take a look at the field. David, this is a race that used to be a very prestigious race for the filly and mare sprinters. Doesn't really stack up the way it used to, but still graded stakes status. And to the outside, I think Beth's Dream is a horse in here who will take a lot of support. She's just in really nice form right now. I mean, you look at her last, I think, 4 in a row. They're all victories. Her last 6 races on dirt are all wins. You have to go back to sloppy tracks and synthetic tracks to find her most recent losses. So she's just a sharp, sharp horse right now.
Yeah, she's definitely the horse to beat in this race. Has to fend off a trio of runners coming out of the Saffie Joseph barn, a stable that is always dangerous in South Florida. But Beth's Dream drawn well outside, and she seems to have an advantage over this field.
Let's take a look at the Timeform US pace projector. How do they think this race will set up? With Cousin Christie on the front end, not surprising. Unsolved Mystery, another horse who they think will be forwardly placed along with Holland Ice, but doesn't seem like they'll be going all that fast early on in here. Let's take a look at this field and let's meet them horse by horse as we start with the 5-year-old mare down on the inside, Cousin Christie. New York bred. She is stakes placed, David. She seems like the one to catch, and I would probably agree with Timeform US with that inside draw coming out of the 6 furlong races at Saratoga. I just wonder with her, how good is she overall? I could see her getting a pretty fair trip on the front end in here. Do you think that stacks up as far as hitting the board or winning this race?
Yeah, Cousin Christie's not really the type that wants to pass horses, so they kind of have to go to the front end from the rail if she's quick enough, and she probably is. I just feel like from a class standpoint, she doesn't really stack up against these. She's coming off a victory at Saratoga against New York breds. The horse that she was in a photo with that day, Athena Beach, she'd be kind of tough to like it here. The 3rd place finisher came back to win with the 76 buyer, but did so at Finger Lakes, so it just feels like her form is a cut below these.
Amonra is Grade 3 placed. This filly ran a couple of nice races last year, but she hasn't really progressed. I was hoping for more from her. She's been behind Best Dream, Mary Quite Contrary, Cousin Christie, Soul of an Angel. So those are all rivals in this race that she's going to have to turn the tables on at least. Let's talk a little about Imanra.
Yeah, I was actually interested in her when she shipped to New York 3 back for the vagrancy. I was a little disappointed in her performance that day. Hasn't really bounced back since then. She got a good trip against Beth's Dream last time and just had no answer for that mare when she made her move. So couldn't really go back to her in this spot.
Number 3 is Hall and Ice. This is one of those Saffie Joseph Jr. horses that you were mentioning earlier. What's nice about this filly, she's actually an Arkansas bred. She's a stakes winner. Last out, she was favored at Charlestown in the Oaks. And if you can make an excuse for that race where she just didn't have any punch late, she was sitting in a pretty good spot, didn't really seem to have many excuses, and then she just didn't go on with it. Some horses don't like Charlestown, but she gets to come back to Gulfstream Park where she has performed very well. And she seems like she's a horse on the upside, David, if you could just eliminate that last race and get back to her body of work before that. She has been very competitive, one loss, and then defeated a horse named Mucha, who we actually saw go over and finish 3rd in the Grade 2 Prioress behind Bright Work and Too Sharp, earned an 87 buyer that day. So if you want to use that as kind of a measuring stick for her, I think she fits pretty well in here. She's lightly raced. I could understand anyone going in this direction.
Yeah, she was a tough call for me, and we could take a look at the replay of her victory 2 back in the Azalea, where she was very impressive, earning this 91 buyer, beating Muccia, who, as you said, came back to run pretty well at Saratoga. She is a little bit of a 1-number horse, with this race being the one that makes her competitive with a horse like Beth's Dream, because if you kind of take this race out of her past performances, she looks like a bit of a reach in this spot based on all of her other efforts. She actually was beaten resoundingly by Muccia going 3 back, and last time in the Charlestown Oaks, she didn't show up that day. I will say Saffie Joseph had another horse in there for the same ownership group, Mystic Lake, who did win that race, and both of these fillies seem to have a similar running style, and this was the one that it seemed like they decided not to go forward with, and they took her back a little bit. She ended up a bit wide on the turns, so maybe that worked against her a little bit. Getting back to 1 turn here should suit her, and if she runs back to the Azalea, she's going to be a serious rival for Beth's Dream.
The key for her, lightly raced. Does she have some upside and can she build off of that Azalea? Or as you were pointing out, is that the outlier? Is she going to run back to some of the slower races that she was running a little earlier on in her career? Mary Quite Contrary is a grade 2 winner. She has done most of her work here at Gulfstream Park. And David, you really know what you're going to get with her. She's a late runner. She needs a little pace to run at. She's going to drop back. She will need to turn the tables on Beth's Dream and Soul of an Angel, who have recently gotten the better of her. I think some of that has to do with running style because she's a little bit of a horse who needs some help up front, but she's very honest. And for her running style, 7 for 17 is actually a pretty good winning percentage for a horse like this.
Yeah, I wanted to make a case for her because she does have races in her past that would make her really tough on this field. It just feels like she's a little over the top now as a 5-year-old mare. She won 6 of the first 7 starts of her career. And since then, she's gone 1 for 10. She's had trouble getting back to the winner's circle. Maybe if they go quickly up front, she's going to come running late because she does seem like the best closer. But it just feels like others have shown a little more brilliance in the recent races.
Soul of an Angel has been facing some of the top fillies and mares, some of the best in the distaff division, like Idiomatic and Randomized and Raging Sea, who popped up with a really impressive win last time out. So when you're looking at her recent form, it's very solid overall. She's run 3 of her career best races out of her last 4 starts since coming into the Safety Joseph Jr. barn. Grade 2 winner. All of those really positives. My main concern with her, David, she doesn't have a whole lot of early speed, and she's going to be cutting back in here to 7 furlongs. I think she's only had 1 race in her career where she went 6 furlongs, and then everything else has been a little bit longer than that. So I'm just a little worried about where she will stack up from a early on pace standpoint, but from a class standpoint, she's coming out of much better races than anybody else in here.
It's a little bit of a strange spot for her. She's the kind of horse I would have expected to see in a race like maybe the Beldame at the
Yep.
Belmont at the Big A meet, but instead she's showing up here, turning back. She's run 39 times in her career. The last 38 starts of those have all been going a mile or longer. She hasn't sprinted since her career debut, where she was 9th going 6 furlongs. So, not a ton of evidence that she wants to go this short. I guess the connections are thinking she ran her best career race going a 1-turn mile first off the switch to Saffie Joseph back in May. So maybe 1 turn is really what she's looking for. I just wish she had done a little more running last time in the personal ensign, where she got a very good setup and just had little to offer late. That was a tougher field, but I wasn't totally convinced that sprinting is going to be her gig.
Yeah, I have her more of an under type in here. Unsolved Mystery won a non-winners to 2 optional claimer at Colonial. And that was the first start for her as a 5-year-old. So coming off of a long layoff was a nice effort to get the job done there. But she will need to really improve and get a lot faster in this race to compete with some of the top contenders.
Yeah, I respect her early speed. It just feels like she's a horse who is a little slower than the main rivals in here, and she was beating up on a weaker field last time at Colonial. So she'll be a pace presence, but I'll be somewhat surprised if she's around late.
Let's move to Battle Cry, who's a 13-time winner, but all of that success, David, has come against much softer foes, and she's not even in the greatest of form right now. Her last 2 races have not been good, and both of them have been followed by layoffs, which isn't really a positive. So I had a tough time making a case for her.
She's just got the one dirt race that makes her mildly competitive here when she beat Beth's Dream going the mile at Gulfstream in August of last year. But that was over a sloppy sealed track. It felt like Beth's Dream didn't really handle the going that day, and this filly took advantage. Her recent form just makes her a little tough to like.
Gallop Day Hermé had a fine start, settled in the inside, and absolutely exploded in the most recent race. That was on September the 1st, and that was on a sloppy racetrack. And that was a career best effort and kind of an outlier there. When you see that for a filly like this, do you think, okay, she's maybe hoping for an off track again, and maybe that's how she can be competitive here? Because it doesn't feel like a lot of her other races would really fare well against a group like this.
No, and even that race probably puts her a couple below some of the main contenders, and she got such a perfect trip scooting up the inside against a vastly inferior field to the one that she's meeting here. So she'd be a surprise.
Pacholi is a horse I feel like I have to see a race from, David. This is a multiple group stakes winner in Uruguay, but a horse has not raced since March the 30th in the Godolphin Mile. And when you're just looking at the work tab, very spotty, not what we're used to seeing for horses here in the US, traditional every 7-day works to get a horse fit coming into a race. See lots of gaps in the work tab too. So I have to just take a wait and see approach with Pacholi in here. Do you give this horse any chance?
Yeah, you don't usually think of Uruguay as producing the best horses in South America. And beyond that, she was competing at distances of a mile and an eighth, a mile and a quarter down there and showing speed in those races, but that speed is unlikely to translate to a 7 furlong American sprint. She could never get forward in the Godolphin Mile over the winter, so she'd be a surprise.
Best Dream rounds out the field. She's a really cool horse, Florida bred, who's won her last 4 in a row. And if you just go back to her dirt races, she's won 6 straight on the dirt. Her speed figures are just better than most in this group. She has speed, but what's nice, David, with her running style, she can sit off a little bit. With horses like that, I always think being drawn to the outside is so beneficial for them because it just gives them the options. They don't get as forced being down on the inside of horses. So she may not be the horse to bet in here, but she's definitely the horse to beat, in my opinion.
Yeah, let's take a look at her last race in the sheer drama, where she just did what we've grown accustomed to her seeing her do in her past several races. She just sat in a stalking position, took over at the top of the stretch, and widened through the lane. Seems like all of her one-turn miles at Gulfstream are carbon copies of each other. And kind of going back through her racing past performances, she's a real one-turn specialist. When you isolate her one-turn dirt races, she's won 9 of her last 10 of those. Just seems like this is what she wants to do. She handled the 7 furlongs in the last race, and she's got speed figures that just make her consistently faster than everybody in this field. And I agree with your sentiments about the outside post position, so I thought she was way the horse to beat in this spot.
Yeah, Mary Quite Contrary is one of the main foes. She's handled that one easily and a couple times recently. So let's take a look how we set this one up for selections. David, Best Dreams, definitely the horse to beat. You and I have the same exact horses, just in a slightly different order in here. Talk us through your selections.
Yeah, I just ultimately couldn't get interested enough in anybody else to put them over Beth Stream in this race. Not looking forward to betting her at a short price. I just thought that she was a very likely winner of this race. I do agree with you, though, that the main danger is Hall and Ice if she can get back to that Everett 2 back.
Yeah, she just feels to me like maybe the only playable horse in here if you're looking to go against Beth Stream, because she has some upside. I could see her continuing to step forward. And as you were pointing out with Mary Quite Contrary, I think she might be a little past her best. Horse like Soul of an Angel doesn't feel like this is necessarily the best spot for her. So to me, if you're looking to try to beat Beth Stream, I think it might be with Hall and Ice. However, you're playing race number 10 at Gulfstream Park on Saturday. We wish you the best of luck. Make sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel right below so you get great race previews just like this each and every week.
Hey, buddy. Let me tell you something. If you really enjoyed this great content, just click the like and subscribe button right here. And if you enjoy the race of the day, stakes previews, and lots more starring me, please click right here. You're not gonna regret it.